shadow in the hall. I never thought I'd experience anything terrifying while staying home alone. My friends and family often joked about my overactive imagination, especially when I told them how much I loved horror movies. But nothing could prepare me for the night that would change my perspective forever. It was a chilly October evening. My parents had decided to take a weekend trip to visit my aunt in the country, leaving me behind for a few days. They thought I was old enough at 17 to handle a little solitude. I had my plans set, a marathon of horror films, plenty of snacks, and a cozy blanket to wrap myself in. As night fell, I felt a wave of excitement wash over me. I settled in, the dim light of the television flickering in the otherwise dark living room. The first few hours were uneventful. I laughed at jump scares and relished in the comfort of my own home. But as the clock approached midnight, the atmosphere shifted. The house creaked and groaned in the silence, a natural consequence of an old structure settling. However, I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't entirely alone. I dismissed it as paranoia, a byproduct of my cinematic indulgence. Around 12:30 a.m. I heard it, a soft thump from the hallway. My heart raced. I paused the movie and strained my ears, listening intently. I told myself it was just the house settling again, but the unease in my stomach grew. I decided to get up, grab a glass of water, and check the hallway. Maybe it was just my imagination running wild. As I stepped into the dim corridor, I was struck by an odd chill. The air felt heavy, almost suffocating. I glanced down the hallway toward the front door, which was locked and bolted. Nothing seemed out of place. I took a deep breath and turned to head back to the living room when I caught a glimpse of something in my peripheral vision. It was fleeting. A shadow darting just outside the reach of the dim light. My stomach dropped. I convinced myself it was merely a trick of the light, or perhaps a reflection. I hurried back to the safety of the living room, sealing myself in with my blanket. I resumed the movie, but my attention was scattered. I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Minutes later, the thumping sound returned, but this time it was louder, echoing through the hallway like a slow drumbeat. Panic gripped me. I muted the TV and listened intently. It came again, a heavy, deliberate knock against the wall, followed by an almost whispering rustle, as if someone were dragging their fingers along the surface. I grabbed my phone, my hands trembling, ready to call for help if necessary. Then, without warning, the lights flickered and went out, plunging me into darkness. My heart raced as I fumbled for the flashlight app on my phone, the screen casting a faint glow that barely illuminated the room. I stood frozen, contemplating my next move. Should I call my parents? Should I check the hallway again? I decided to gather my courage and investigate. With my phone's flashlight in hand, I crept slowly toward the hallway, every step echoing in the silence. The thumping had ceased, but I could still feel a tension in the air, as if something was holding its breath. I reached the end of the hallway, heart pounding in my chest, and peered into the darkness. The hallway was empty, but the air felt charged. My eyes darted from one end to the other, searching for any sign of movement. Just as I was about to turn back, the front door rattled. It wasn't a gust of wind, it was a deliberate shake, as if someone was trying to get in. My heart raced as I backed away slowly, my breath hitching in my throat. I was paralyzed with fear. The only sound was my heartbeat pounding in my ears. I was alone, or so I thought. Then I saw it, a figure in the darkness, standing just outside the door, barely illuminated by the faint glow of my phone. It was tall and thin, its outline indistinct but unmistakably human. I couldn't make out any features, but it felt as though it was staring right at me. I panicked and dashed back into the living room, locking the door behind me. My fingers fumbled with the deadbolt as I caught a glimpse of the figure moving away from the door and down the porch steps. It was an instinctual response. Block it out. Focus on something else. I turned back to the television, But the screen was now static, and the room felt colder. Suddenly, my phone buzzed. It was a message from my mom asking how I was doing. I quickly typed a response, my hands shaking. "I'm okay, just a bit scared." The lights went out. As I hit send, I heard a soft, creaking sound behind me, like someone shifting their weight. My stomach dropped, and I slowly turned around. To my horror, the figure was standing in my living room now, only a few feet away from me. I was frozen, unable to scream, my body locked in place. The figure raised its arm slowly, and I could finally see its face, hollow eyes that seemed to suck the light from the room. It opened its mouth, but instead of a scream or a growl, an eerie, whispering voice filled the air, echoing with a chill. "Let me in." In that moment, instinct kicked in. I bolted for the kitchen, heart racing, adrenaline flooding my veins. I grabbed a knife from the drawer, my mind racing with thoughts of what to do next. I felt cornered, a caged animal with nowhere to escape. Just then, I heard my mom's voice calling my name from the hallway. Confusion surged through me. Was she back early? I hesitated, knife in hand, trying to discern if it was real or just another trick of the shadows. The voice called again, this time sounding desperate and distorted. I rushed back to the living room and looked down the hallway. The figure was gone. I felt a flicker of hope, but it was short-lived as I realized the door was wide open. Panic surged through me again as I shouted for my mom, but there was only silence in response. I stepped cautiously into the hallway, my heart pounding. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being hunted. I checked every room, my breath growing shallow, but they were all empty. I decided to return to the living room, hoping the figure had simply been a hallucination, a trick of my mind. The figure stood there again, closer this time, and I realized I wasn't just dealing with an intruder. It was something far more sinister, a presence that seemed to feed off my fear. It raised its arm once more, but this time it pointed toward the window. I turned to look, and that's when I saw her. My mom stood outside, but her face was twisted in an unnatural way, almost unrecognizable. "Help me," she mouthed silently, but the words didn't reach my ears, just the whisper of the shadow behind me, urging me to let it in. I froze, trapped between the entity and the figure of my mom outside. I was torn, unsure of what to believe. Then the whisper echoed again, louder and more insistent. "Let me in!" In that instant, I made my choice. I screamed, rushing past the shadow towards the open door, desperate to reach my mother. I flung the door wide open, but when I turned to grab her, she was gone, vanished into the night. The house fell silent again, the shadow behind me gone, but I knew it was waiting, lurking just out of sight. I realized then that I had invited something malevolent into my life, and it wouldn't stop until it got what it wanted. Now, even when the lights are on and I'm surrounded by friends, I feel that familiar chill creeping back, a reminder that sometimes true horrors aren't found in movies. They linger in the shadows of our own homes, waiting for the right moment to strike. I've learned to never stay home alone again, because some doors are better left closed, and some shadows are never meant to be welcomed in.
Love what you see? Then subscribe us and hit the bell icon to keep up to date, and make sure you like the video. If you have a real horror story that you want to share, please email it to us. Our email is as follows: official@gmail.com.